guys, what's up? Ford Tech Make You Loco here. Got a common failure on Ford Tauruses. Heater core is plugged up. Customer complaint, low heat coming out of the vents. It's not heating up enough, and you'll see it a lot more on the 3.0 OHV Vulcan engines. They have the problem with rust building up in there, and then it eventually plugs the heater core. I'm going to go over the parts and chemicals and coolant that we should have for a proper repair when we're done here. Now that bottle, you can flush it all you want, you'll never get all the sediment out because there's multiple chambers in there. This one you could see, maybe? No. Let me show you. There's multiple chambers inside these bottles. You never get it all clean. You're going to put a decent amount of that sediment and rust back into there. So we should be changing that coolant bottle, the fresh new one, of course a fresh new cap, because all the rust gets in the relief spring and all that stuff in here. So we're going to have a proper new cap on there. Heater core, obviously. And then the same thing with all the rust and sediment. You're going to want to change the thermostat, so you're going to need the gasket, obviously. Now what Ford has is their latest and greatest iron out cleaner is VC9, and that's the stuff you put in there after you've flushed it as much as you can with straight water. You're going to put this in there, let it get hot and run through, and then you're going to flush it twice after that with straight water, and then let it drain. This will start getting rid of all that coated on iron that's all inside of there, and is what Ford recommends for this exact concern. This VC7B is the new gold coolant they've been using since 01 on, and is a vastly superior coolant. So since our system is fully cleaned out, we can safely change over to it, and for this car we will be changing over to it. And don't forget some hot fresh coffee to help it all along. While this is heating up, you can see the gauge is still, it's creeping up. We can actually start pulling apart the interior stuff, so we can start getting that heater core done over there. While it's heating up and doing its flushing thing, we can still pull a lot of bolts out and start getting some of this dash out while it's running. There's a lot of brackets and a lot of bolts, and we can get started on that. First things first, we can pull these trim panels right here on either side. It's on either side, and they look exactly the same. So we're going to go ahead and get those out of there. And that'll give us access to the two main bolts that hold up the support the dash on either side. Right there. And there. They're 13 mil bolts. Go ahead and pull the leather stripping out of the way so you have full access to those bolts. Just a little bit right there. Now repeat the same thing on the other side. I pre-popped this one. It was actually kind of hard to pop out, but get your cat claw and get in here and pop it up like that, and pull this dash panel out. After that panel's out of the way, there's 3 8mm bolts. One on each side and one in the center. You can go ahead and pull those out next, safely. Alright, so when you pull those 3 8mm bolts out, use an extension like this in your ratchet so you can keep it far away, and kind of keep your hand covering the handle of the ratchet so you don't go up and hit the glass. You'll be ratcheting really fast, and all of a sudden you'll just hit the glass, and it'll actually smack it enough to make a spider web type deal. On the passenger side, under the glove box, we're going to be pulling 4 connectors. Blower motor, the resistor connector for the blower motor, and then this one and this one. Like so. There's 4 of them there, because those are attached to the dash where you'd be pulling the dash, so they're going to come with it. On the driver's side, we need to put a bungee around the steering wheel like so it holds it in place so it can't spin. And we hook it to the stalk there for the turn signal. And then on this side for the shifter. And that way it can't spin on us when we pull that shaft bolt out. So once the steering wheel is held in place at the bungee, we can go ahead and pull this bolt that holds the steering shaft on. Couples them together. Get the bolt out, and then you can slide this down and disconnect it. Now for those two main bolts on the driver's side that hold the whole dash in, you want to pull the top one, loosen it. You want to loosen it to about right there where it's sticking out but it's still threaded in. And then this bottom one's going to come fully out. Make sure you keep that top one in there, loose like that, but still in there. That's going to be our pivot point to support the dash as we flip the other side out. Next thing you want to do before you go any further with pulling that dash out is get these A-pillar trims off of here. You just grab up here and you start popping it. And they're just push fasteners. Next, pull the two main bolts out from the passenger side. Pull the bottom first, and then we'll pull the top. When you pull this top one, the last one, this dash will start coming forward towards you, so be ready to hold it. As you can see, it's fully coming away now. Alright, so once you got the last bolt out on this side, you can go ahead and support the dash and pull it out. And rest it on the seat here, the passenger seat. Put something down on there so that it doesn't dig into it. There's some metal brackets here. And you can see now why we pull those four connectors. They're retained by the dash there. They're coming out with it. And now we got free access to the unit here to change that heater core out. So now you can see how the other side is going to be our pivot point and support that side while this side gets supported by this seat here. Alright, now that the dash is out of the way, we got access to that heater core. We need to pull that actuator off and some linkage. And we need to pull that cover off. And then we can yank her out. Alright, first thing we're going to do is pull the electrical connector off of it. And then there's three 8mm bolts. There, and one right there on the other side. Go ahead and pull those out. And then we can slide this off. And then you see that linkage right here. It's going right across the heater core. We need to pull that off next. Now for this upper arm actuator right here, you're going to want to rubber band it up and out of the way, else it's going to catch on this cover, and you pull it off and you're going to break that off. Alright, next thing we got to do is pull the two hoses that feed the heater core. I've already pulled them off here so you can identify them. Alright, now that the hardest part of the job is over, pulling the two hoses off, you got to pull out the remaining screws in this cover. And there's the heater core. Go ahead and just push on those two tubes that are sticking out here, and that'll push the heater core out so you can grab it from the other side. Put some towels down to catch any residual coolant. Pull it out, tip it up immediately like that. Right there you can see the problem. You can see right there. That scale right there, that's what's plugging it up. The new one doesn't come with the foam around the edges to seal it off. So we're going to put our own on there, camper foam. Works great. Put the foam seal all the way around so it looks something like this. Now's a good time to make sure these doors work. You can see they work and all that. And this top one, of course, works fine. Now these tubes are offset. So it goes in like this, tubes towards the top. It just slides in. And then we can put our cover back on here. Reassemble your linkage top and the rod there and connect it in the bottom, and then we can put that actuator back on. Go ahead and put your actuator back on, index it in there, and then you got your 1, 2, 3 bolts. Plug your connector in for the actuator, put the retainer back in there. Now it's time to reassemble the dash. One thing I want to mention is you'll see a lot of instructionals to go through the glove box and pull the dash away just like a few inches. That is a real pain getting that out, because this heater core has to come out 8-10 inches and you're constantly fighting it through the dash openings there. This would take you literally 10 minutes to pull this dash. There's only a few bolts, and look at the room you got. No fighting at all. Perfect job. Alright, plop the dash back in, and it has locating pins on there, so you really can't get it wrong. It'll locate it and hold it for you while you get these bolts in. You start them by hand and hold the dash, and then you can get these tightened down. Tighten both on the driver's side. Next. Trim panels back in place. Go ahead and put your A-pillar trims back in place. The other side's already done. Time for the steering shaft. You need to index that slot right there with the bolt hole. And it shouldn't have moved. So you put it right in there. And then put some fresh Loctite on your bolt. Blue Loctite. You should be able to thread it in, no problem by hand. That's how you know it's all lined up properly. Once you got it threaded by hand and you know it's not cross-threading, go ahead and tighten it up. Go ahead and pull the bungee from the steering wheel. Back on the passenger side under the dash, connect those 4 connectors up. Tighten your dash bolts, all 3 of them. Trim panel back in place. Flat all the way across then. Alright, put your heater hoses back on, push them in all the way, and then put your clamps on both of them. Index them so they're in the same location. You'll be able to see the impression on there. And that's done. Here you can see why we changed that degas bottle. There's just too many cavities in there to fully clean it. Now I'll let sediments and get right back into the system. May look clean from the top, but in all reality, that's what's stuck in all those cavities. Something to think about. Now if you are going to change the bottle, there's a 10 mil here, a 10 mil there, that hose, that bleeder hose, and that one obviously, and then you get your main one right there, the big clamp on it. And then it just unhooks from the fender well there, and it hooks back in when you're done and bolt it up. It's a good idea. Alright, now that everything's back together, we can go ahead and put this plug back in and we can start filling her up. Make sure when you tighten this, you tighten it by hand because it's plastic and it can crack. Snug it like that, and that's it. Just a little bit. You'll feel it. Make sure you put the shield back on there and the 2 screws. And then we put our shield on over here that covers the blower motor. Now when you refill it with the gold coolant, fill it more, mix it more at a 60-40 or 70-30 mixture that's 60% coolant or 70% coolant, because we do have that water from flushing in the engine, and it's going to mix and dilute it. So 60-40, 70-30, we should be safe. And when they mix up, it'll be closer to that 50-50 where it should be. That's specified. So let it run for a while until it gets nice and hot, and make sure you got to the cold fill line when you're done after you recheck it the next morning or later that day when it's cooled off. In the meantime, just make sure it's still in that range when you're top and we're bleeding it out here. And check all your connections again, every hose connection you've touched. Heater core ones, the upper radiator hose here, and its thermostat housing you just changed out. Should be able to feel a nice hot hose here now. And let's go in the car and check it out and see how hot it is in there. Okay, so I just got in the car and I'm already freaking baking from the heat. I got it on full heat and I got it on 3, and we are just about heated up. Even when it is heating up, you should start feeling some good heat coming out of there, and about where it is right now. It still has a little bit to go before it gets to operating temperature. It should really be baking you out in here. So you'll know it's fixed. Just to make sure that your actuator for the temperature blend is fine, put it back down to cold, and you should feel a change to room temperature, and well, slightly above, and then back to full heat, and you'll feel that hot air blast again. You can check our blower speeds, make sure we got that resistor card connected back up. And then make sure your functions still work, which means we had the vacuum connector fully seated. So when you put it on defrost, it works, and when you put it on, vent, it comes out the vent, because that requires vacuum to work. So you can check all your connections that way too. Recheck and make sure you got your steering works and it's fully tightened down. It's a good idea. That's a very important thing. You don't want to lose the bolt out of the steering shaft there. Make sure you torque it down. And smoking hot heat, just in time for winter. Another satisfied customer. Once you're satisfied and you got it all bled out, put the cap back on, your new cap. Nice and tight till it clicks, and you're done.